Hi, I'm with Alan Gottlieb of the Second Amendment Foundation and Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. And I wanted to talk to you, Alan, about some of your lawsuits that are going on right now. First of all, tell us about your two organizations.
Well, the Second Amendment Foundation is the nation's oldest and largest tax-exempt foundation dedicated to the right to keep and bear arms, legal defense, public education, research and publishing. We've been around since 1974. Very instrumental in a significant number of lawsuits that have been filed and won, and a lot of them in court right now. And the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms is sort of the lobbying arm. It's its own independent organization, but it really engages in direct and grassroots lobbying. It's what it mostly does, and we have an office in Washington, D.C. as well.
So what about your lawsuits that are going on right now? Maybe you can highlight some of them and where they're at right now.
Well, let me go backtrack a little bit of history. A few years ago, of course, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in the case D.C. versus Heller that the Second Amendment was an individual right, and that the Washington, D.C. ban on handguns in your own home was unconstitutional. And then the day that ruling came out, the Second Amendment Foundation filed a case known as McDonald versus Chicago to challenge Chicago's gun ban, mainly for the purposes of getting the Second Amendment incorporated through the 14th Amendment, so it's applicable to all 50 states. Because of the Heller decision, it only applied to the federal government and enclaves like Washington, D.C. So it was pretty cool to be able to win that suit at the Supreme Court, both of them at the highest level. And then, of course, it knocked out the Chicago gun ban as well. And we immediately then filed another lawsuit in North Carolina challenging the state's Emergency Powers Act. They have a law there that allows them to suspend Second Amendment rights in times of emergencies. And like right now, they're looking at a hurricane hitting North Carolina. A few years ago, when a snowstorm hit in the wintertime, they suspended Second Amendment rights. You couldn't take your gun outside your home. You couldn't buy a gun. You couldn't buy ammunition. So we have that case right now. We're waiting for a decision that could come down any day from federal court on that one. And we have another case we recently filed in Illinois challenging the new law that Chicago passed. It's known as the Zell versus Chicago, where they decided that they to have a gun in your own home, which the Supreme Court said that you have a right to do. They made a new law saying in order to have that gun in your own home, you had to have range training with the firearm at a gun range, which sounds reasonable, except that they banned gun ranges. And so we filed suit on that one, and we won up in the appeals court level at the 7th Circuit, a 3-0 unanimous decision. That basically was a really important decision, because now for the first time we have an appeals court in the United States saying the Second Amendment right now it goes outside your home as well, and you do have a right to have that gun, to take it to a gun range or to practice with it outside your home. And winning that suit, we immediately turned around and filed another suit in Illinois. Illinois is the only state in the country that doesn't allow any form of carrying a firearm for self-protection. You can't carry it openly, you can't carry it concealed, there's no permit system whatsoever. We filed a case against that law, and we had a hearing for a preliminary injunction motion we filed, and waiting any day now for a ruling out of the circuit court judge in that case in Illinois. And of course, no matter what, if we win or we lose, and I'm hoping we're going to win it, it's going to get appealed to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, where I'm sure we're going to win at that level no matter what, because we already have the Zell ruling that knocked out the Chicago gun range ban and said that Second Amendment right extends outside your own home. And as a result, we're on a case where we're going to win that. And of course, Illinois will probably then end up appealing it to the Supreme Court. And that's what our goal is to get a third case to the U.S. Supreme Court. We now have the Second Amendment as an individual right. We had the Supreme Court also rule that it applies to all 50 states. Now we want to make sure that that ruling means that your Second Amendment right to have that gun doesn't stop at your front door. Your right of self-defense can be anywhere in the country.
So there was another really famous case that you're involved with related to New Orleans. Can you tell people about that case?
Yeah, that case goes back a few years ago when New Orleans had Hurricane Katrina, and the law enforcement in New Orleans decided to ban and confiscate privately owned firearms that people had for self-defense that were totally legally owned. We went to court on that. We won that, and the city had their ban thrown out and had to return all the confiscated firearms. And more importantly, the great part about that was the city attorney got held in contempt of court and got fined by the court because the city wasn't being honest with the federal judge. It was a really great case and set a lot of precedent.
So in terms of the overall picture, can you just give people an idea of, across the country, what's the state that has the best firearms law and what's the worst, and where does Hawaii rank in that?
Well, it's hard to say what has the best and what has the worst. There's some good parts and bad parts to everybody's law, but probably some of the best laws are states like Arizona or Alaska. Montana, Wyoming are pretty good as well. Those are some of the better states. Some of the worst states, of course, are Massachusetts, New Jersey, Illinois. And Hawaii isn't the worst state by any stretch of the imagination. They're really bad when it comes to being able to get a permit to have carry a concealed firearm. But Hawaii does allow ownership of handguns and rifles and shotguns. So while it's a little heavily regulated and there's some burdens the state puts on it, in your own home at least, or for some certain legitimate lawful purposes, you're allowed to own the gun. The problem in Hawaii is their carry laws are very bad, and those eventually are going to be struck down.
So just for the final question, looking into the future, what do you see as the major issues coming up? You have the case you just talked about, but what do you see on the landscape for Second Amendment advocates to know about?
Well, the big area, of course, is concealed carry or carrying a firearm for self-defense. So one, I talked about what's happening in the courts, but then you also have what's happening legislatively, and we're looking in Congress to pass laws for reciprocity. That if you have a permit in one state, it's good in all 50 states. And of course, if we win some more lawsuits so that states that aren't issuing permits are forced to issue permits, then a law passed like that by Congress will be very important, because it will be like a driver's license and be good all across the country.
Okay, and you have a big event coming up. Can you just tell us about it?
Yeah, we have our National Gun Rights Policy Conference coming up September 23rd, 4th, and 5th. It moves around the country. This year it's in Chicago because we want to go to Chicago since we beat them twice in 2 key lawsuits recently, and we have one against the state of Illinois going on right now. We want to celebrate some victories and push for some future successes. It's a great conference. It has lots of interesting people, all gun rights leaders from all across the country speak at it. It's open to the public. It's free. You can find out information about it and register at our website at saf.org. Second Amendment Foundation, saf.org, or just put Second Amendment Foundation in your browser and it will pop up, and it's right on the home page.
Great. Well, when you come back to Hawaii, we'll have to have you on our TV show again.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I love that artwork in the back. It's very interesting.
Thank you.